Welcome back, Sebastian here. So today I want to kind of do a video kind of giving some advice to Formula E, to the people who run Formula E, for kind of things that I think that the series could do to kind of grow the sport, grow the appeal of the series. I've kind of broken this down into several categories, and this may turn into kind of a rambly, ranty kind of video, but I don't really intend for it to sound that way. So, starting off with marketing. If you go on any of Formula E's social media pages, particularly Instagram, for example, in almost what it seems like almost every video they do promoting the upcoming season or promoting an upcoming E-Prix, they will use this phrase: season something something is the best ever. And they've been using it for years now. For example, season 10 is going to be the best ever. Season 9, at last year, they would say season 9 is the best ever, right? And it's the kind of marketing that gets old very, very quickly. And it's something that I think they really need to try to work on. This kind of leads into kind of some of the promo videos that they've been doing the last couple of years. The one they did recently for this season was the earthquake promo, trying to show that Formula E was so interesting that you would watch through the Formula E race even during an earthquake. And of course, they obviously can't time these things particularly well. But obviously, right after that video was posted, there was a big earthquake in China. For reference, if you haven't seen it, the actors in the video were Asian. So I think, and like basically the whole set looked like it was set in East Asia. There was obviously an earthquake in China that killed many people, and then very recently there was an earthquake in Japan, killed many people as well. So obviously, but not great timing, but of course not really their fault. Last year they had the one with the Formula E plane falling out of an airplane. That one didn't make a whole lot of sense either. And then of course, I believe 2 years ago, there was the no turning back, where they basically had drivers, they had basically drivers wearing the outfit with the helmets, and they were basically running through the streets of the cities where Formula E would go. And it was with the hashtag no turning back. And these marketing videos, like, they kind of made absolutely no sense even to the most diehard viewers. And for me, if I was in charge of Formula E's marketing, things that I would focus on would be the speed of the cars, the acceleration. We're at a point where the speed and the acceleration are actually pretty competitive with lower end Formula 3 cars, I believe, and that's something that I think the series should be really proud of, especially for an electric series. Another thing that I think they really need to do a better job of is the competitiveness, marketing the competitiveness of the series. The fact that you can have so many different winners in so many races, the fact that you're pretty much guaranteed to have a really close title fight. So marketing the drivers better, trying to build up their drivers as stars, as personalities, I think would also really, really help the series. I do think, and having like a really big name from, F1, for example, coming in later in their career, I think would also help as a lot. I know a lot of people came in at the start of Gen 2, when Stoffel Vandoorne, Pascal Wehrlein, Felipe Massa all joined the series from Formula 1. So for example, having a driver like, say, Sebastian Vettel, I know he said he has no interest in Formula E, but that kind of driver who has that kind of profile, I think could massively benefit the sport. Moving on to the racing side, honestly, I think the racing is really good as it is right now. The changes that they made to the qualifying format after Season 7 and the debacle that season was, I think was a massive change for the better. I think it's much more of a meritocracy now. I do think that's a massive improvement. The only things I would kind of change would be making races slightly longer. Most top-level single-seater series are at least an hour long. Formula 1 races are usually an hour and a half. IndyCar can be 2 to 3 hours, sometimes longer. Formula 2, I know feature races are an hour long, so I do think that for Formula E to kind of make it match that kind of length that you kind of expect for a top-level single-seater series, I do think aiming for races that are about an hour is where they should be trying to go, as it would also highlight the electric cars and the fact that they're able to have that much range. I understand that for TV reasons, they really like their 45-minute races because it means that they can basically package it in a really neat 1 hour time slot. But I do think that at some point, for the racing aspect especially, having an hour races would be a bit better. Another thing is the return of pit stops. I was watching the Gen 1 races a couple weeks ago, and just having the pit stops just completely changes kind of the race. It gives this element of I don't know, not chaos, but slightly unpredictability, which can really change the pecking order of a race that you don't really have anymore. We didn't really have in Gen 2. And the attack mode helps a little bit, but of course it's much shorter than an actual pit stop. So it's just something there that I think would be nice to have come back. I know there's plans to have them back, I believe, the second half of the back-to-backs this coming season. I haven't really seen a whole lot on that. And with the season starting in a week's time, I'm kind of starting to worry if we might get any pit stops at all this season. Now, for circuits, this is one that I think should be that I think we are seeing. This is kind of a trend that we're seeing, and I think we're going to see more of this in the coming years. And that's aiming for more power-hungry circuits. The new circuits we got in Season 9, Cape Town, Sao Paulo, Portland, all really address this. They are all some of the in terms of circuits that have the absolute average highest lap speed over the course of a qualifying lap. Those three are some of the fastest circuits we've ever had. So that's really, really good. So just for comparison, the max capacity of the Gen 3 car, I do think it's limited a little bit, but the max is 47 kilowatt hours. And for reference, at the 2023 London E-Prix, which is one of the slowest track the Formula E's ever raced at, for round 1 it was 38 kilowatt hours, and for round 2 it was 27 kilowatt hours. So barely above 50% of the battery's capacity. So it really shows that by racing on some of these really tight city circuits, you're not really actually showing the benefit of this battery technology and this regen technology that these Gen 3 cars have. So I do think aiming for more power-hungry circuits is something that the series should be going forwards, and it would help with this, with their marketing as well. Of course, it doesn't necessarily have to be purpose-built circuits. That's something I'll talk about a little bit later, but I do think that they need to try to aim for more power-hungry circuits and try to get away from these circuits like London, which are so slow and have so few straights that they're basically having to cut the max battery by basically almost 50% in order to make the racing more competitive. Sao Paulo, another one for comparison, 40 kilowatt hours, and that was very close to the max of the Formula E's range for this past season. Now, something I've been thinking about a lot, and this is kind of from an article that I read about a month ago. That was this American website. I'll link it in the description of this video if I can. But they talked about lack of spectacle in Formula E. Now it's something that Formula E really wants to should focus on going forward. And for me, I think it really brings up this good question of what is Formula E's North Star? What is the one thing that they're aiming for as a series? And I think I can think of basically two things that they're really aiming for. One is that they're trying to promote electric racing, or in this case we'll say the spectacle. And another thing that they've made a really key part of their package, their agenda, has been the sustainability aspect. I do think that we've had quite a few instances now over the 10 years in the series history where unfortunately having those two kind of North Stars, well, in most cases it's not a problem. There have been instances where they do contradict each other, and Formula E basically has to choose one or the other. And I think it's something that Formula E is going to really have to consider in the years going forward, of what is their one thing that they want to focus on, and try to push that as much as possible. So first, having hard all-weather tires. So of course Formula E doesn't have slick tires, they don't have tire changes, and they basically bring two sets of tires for each car for each weekend to limit the travel costs associated with that, as well as the environmental impact of having marbles on the track. And that's good and all, but this past season, coming in with the Gen 3 car, that was seen as a massive step forward performance-wise for Formula E. And when you compare the average lap times, they basically didn't improve on average for qualifying times compared to Gen 2, or at least compared to last year of Gen 2. And despite the fact that they're much, much faster in a straight line, and a lot of that came down to the extremely hard Hankook tires that were brought in. Of course, that was at the request of the teams after what happened in New York City the year before. But still, it is a point that you bring in this new car, you promote it as being so much better, so much faster, as the fastest car ever, and then lap times are barely quicker, or in some cases slower than your old car. I think on Formula E's part, that's a massive failure in terms of marketing and the product that you produce, and that is a direct result of this having two things that are kind of in conflict with each other, having the spectacle side as well as the sustainability side. The other way that this kind of plays out is the kinds of circuits that Formula E races at. You have purpose-built circuits. Portland, Mexico City technically counts. This year we're going to be going to Shanghai and Misano as well, compared to versus all of the street circuits that have been the tracks that Formula E has traditionally gone to. And I think the original reason for going to these street circuits was, I think, twofold. One, they needed shorter tracks so that the original Gen 1 Formula E cars could race around them, not look too slow, and there was lots of slow corners so that they could regen and kind of make up for the lack of straight line speed. Formula E cars are much, much faster now than they were when they first started, and they can now race at some purpose-built venues. The other rationale behind the street circuits was that if you bring the racing to the fans in these city centers, it would cut down on travel costs and would also bring in new fans. Compared to purpose-built circuits where you might have to go out for a bit out of the way, you might have to camp, you might have to travel long distances. And I think that one thing that we've seen in the last couple of years, and I think played in the last couple of weeks with cancellation of the Hyderabad E-Prix, is that one of the problems that we've had with some street circuits is that the local politics involved can be a massive hindrance in trying to establish these street circuits and have them stay on the calendar for long, long periods of time. Most races on the calendar, unfortunately, only last a year or two, and then there's a change of government, a change in kind of the attitudes around having a Formula E race shutting down some part of the city or using taxpayer money for that purpose. And unfortunately, the race will kind of get canceled and brushed aside, and Formula E will be forced to bring in a brand new venue and try to cultivate some brand new fans. One of the benefits of having a purpose-built circuit, obviously, is that you don't really have to, there's a lot less of that. You can basically, the circuit's there. Of course, you'll probably have to negotiate with some kind of government, whoever owns the circuit as well. And, it does feel like there's a lot less hurdles that Formula E would have to jump through in order to race at these venues. Another thing as well that kind of comes down here that I'll talk about a bit later is about attendance and how many people are actually able to attend these races. This constant changeover in street circuits, I think really connects to this point here, in that there's a lack of a crown jewel race in Formula E. For IndyCar, Indy 500. WEC, for endurance racing, you have Le Mans. For F1, you have Monaco. And for Formula E, what do you have? Monaco has been a really good race the last couple of years. Of course, that's also F1's thing, right? So do you want your crown jewel to basically be the same as Formula One's? Is it Berlin? We've raced at Berlin every year in the series, of course, two different venues. Tempelhof for the vast majority of that time, with a variety of different layouts, right? And it really comes back to the point that this article made, and about the spectacle, right? If you want to have this crown jewel race that you really want people to get interested in, get involved in, what is that race going to be? Is it going to be Monaco? Is it going to be Berlin, right? So it's something that Formula E is really going to have to ask going forwards. For me personally, I would personally try to go towards more purpose-built circuits. Street circuits are good, and they should still be, I would say, half of them at least should be street circuits. But I do think that realistically, if you want to try to build, get venues that are going to be there for a long, long time going forward, purpose-built circuits, I think is the way to go. And I think it's also better for getting these more power-hungry circuits, show the speed of these cars, especially as the technology develops, and therefore you get better marketing as well, and market how fast these cars are. Last part as well about I want to talk about is accessibility of the product. Streaming, and it really comes down to something that is a conversation that's going on in all of sports, and that comes down to streaming versus exclusive TV contracts. So of course there was the big kerfuffle about a month ago about how TNT in the United Kingdom got the exclusive rights to post Formula E, and how it was going to cost 30 quid a month to do so. And I can understand that for Formula E, they've obviously got a substantial sum of money to stream the exclusive rights, to sell the exclusive rights to Formula E. Obviously, the season hasn't started yet. We're not sure what the viewing numbers are going to be, but I think we're kind of stuck in this kind of gray area where we're transitioning towards streaming and away from these streaming, or away from legacy TV, cable, that kind of thing. And it's something that I think all kind of media companies are trying to figure out how to deal with going forward. If I was Formula E, I would probably try to not have the exclusive TV contracts. The reality is the fan base isn't big enough, I think, to really wield that, to necessitate that, and that it's kind of in this gray area between Formula One, where Formula One can easily be like, here's sell the rights to Sky, and then everyone has to go and watch Sky. There's not enough F1 fans, I think, worldwide that they can do that. With Formula E, that just isn't the case. I do think that they're also not so small that they need to be like Formula Regional 3, Formula Regional, or Formula 4, where they just need to stick their content on YouTube in order to get any eyes on their product. And they're kind of stuck in that gray area. So, if I was Formula E, I probably would sell the TV rights, but not exclusively. And then I would also stream, perhaps on the website, like make a F1 TV like product, like a Formula E TV, or I don't know how this would work, but YouTube does have a members system. Make a system where if you're a member of the Formula E channel, you would then have access to watching all of the races on YouTube, and it could easily be for something like $10 a month. I think a lot of fans would be open to doing that, and not having that geo restriction. The geo-restricted content, I think, would help a lot in that respect too. Now, I talked about this briefly, but I think maximizing event attendance is something that Formula E should really focus on as well. Unfortunately, with some of these street circuits that they have, the grandstands, like I know at New York City, for example, the grandstands were very, very small, and there's not a lot of actual not that many people actually able to attend, especially when you compare to events like the Indy 500 or Le Mans. I know Mexico City does a very good job with their event and their stadium section in the circuit there, but the reality is the majority of Formula E circuits, there's only a couple thousand people that are able to attend. So by moving to more purpose-built circuits, you have the possibility of having more people attend, and therefore getting bigger crowds, and therefore increasing the spectacle as well. So those are just some things I just kind of wanted to waffle about, ramble about, pieces of advice for Formula E, and I think ways that they can grow the series going forward. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and thank you so much for watching, and goodbye.